Hi there. I'm Rick Johnson. I'm an epidemiologist at Marquette University. I'm here in the jungles of Southeast Asia investigating a new infectious disease that's been affecting factory workers in the area. What we're doing here is trying to collect some samples and try and understand a little better of what could possibly be some of the causes of this emerging infectious disease. As you can see, this normally very humid and wet jungle is experiencing a very atypical drought that's been lasting several years. Many of the farmers that have usually farmed this area have been forced to look for work in areas such as the factories. One of the important things to worry about when you are working out in nature is the possibility of encountering any infectious disease at any given time. That's why I use my standard gloves. I also use sample baggies that I put all of my samples in. I also have a large variety of hand sanitizers, anywhere from Autumn Day, Sunlight Apple Tree, or a variety of pumpkin spice. So any of these hand sanitizers will help prevent disease and help control the infection, because what we really want to do at this point in the disease is limit the amount of people that get infected before we really understand the disease and how it affects people.
Beautiful.
Hey there. Are these the boxes for Toronto?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'm going to take them out to the distributor van then, if that's okay.
These are going a lot of
Alrighty.
places. All
I'll
right.
see you guys later. I'll come back for those ones.
All right. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Dr. X. I'll be your doctor today.
Okay.
I'm just here to check up on some of these illnesses that have been going around.
Okay.
All right. Interesting. Pretty warm, pretty warm. Ooh, coughing a lot, huh? And then I'll just listen to your heartbeat for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So the epidemiologist will be in shortly to see you, and then after that you'll be free to go home. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My
Hi.
name's Rick Johnson.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions today. How are you doing?
Good. Good.
All right. Good. I'm an epidemiologist from Marquette University. We're just kind of here trying to investigate some of these diseases that we've been hearing about that have been emerging. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is just try and get some patient samples from you and just swab your mouth and send them back to the lab so we can do some tests and see what might be causing some of these problems.
Okay.
Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Alrighty. So I'm just going to need you to say ah real quick. And we'll just put this center to the lab. Okay. Now I just want to ask you a couple questions if that's okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. So my first one would be what have your symptoms been throughout this experience so far?
I've been feeling restlessness, kind of. I haven't really been able to sleep very well. Insomnia. I've been coughing a lot too, and then get kind of fatigued. And I also have this weird rash on my arm, and my skin's getting kind of yellow around it too.
Alright, that's pretty interesting. How long have these symptoms been going on for?
About 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
It started when new workers came into our factory.
Alrighty, interesting. You haven't sought any care for this, have you?
No, we didn't have the time or money to go to the doctor, so I haven't really been checked besides this.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. Okay, so where exactly are you from? Are you from like the city or the countryside, or where is that?
I'm from the city.
Okay, interesting. And then, so have you had any recent travel? Have you gone anywhere like outside of the city or outside of normal areas for you?
No, I've just kind of been traveling locally, like to the markets, and my nieces and nephews have been going to school, and like we just traveled to work and stuff. So.
Okay, so you said you live with, or who do you all live with? Did you mention that already?
No, I live with 12 people in my
Oh,
house.
really?
It's my grandparents and parents and brother and sister, and then some of their kids, so my nieces and nephews.
Okay,
So
and
it's all of us.
so have any of them gotten sick?
Yeah, my niece actually got sick, and my brother did too at the same time as me. He's been having the same symptoms, and he works in a factory too, kind of more on the countryside though.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been bringing in workers from the rural areas into the factory to work.
Alrighty, well, that's interesting. Well, when it comes to diseases like this, it's really important to keep sanitary measures in mind. And when I talk about that, I'm talking washing your hands after you cough or encounter anyone that may appear to be sick. You want to limit your travel if possible. I know you said you don't really have a lot of money or resources to travel, so you're doing a pretty good job there. And yeah, pretty much all of this is going to be important to stop the spread of disease and really make sure that even though you are living in close quarters, we don't have those problems.
Okay.
So, well, is there anything else you could think of that would be important in helping my investigation out?
There is one thing. My grandparents have kind of talked about this disease when they were younger and lived in the countryside. They were farmers. They said a disease that was kind of similar to this one. People were having rashes and restlessness, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all I have for you then. I'll have a nurse come in and follow up with you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Hi, sorry, I'm really late. I just need to catch a flight.
Okay.
Here's my information
Step
and
yours.
everything.
Metal detector. Oh gosh, we're gonna have to search your stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
sir.
here, I'll help you
Sorry,
out. Sorry, I'm in a really big rush.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, here's I got like a camera in here and some other stuff. I might have set it off.
You know
but-
what? You're pretty late. Why don't you just get going? It's probably
Thank
just
you.
your camera.
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of
Have a good
course.
one.
Oh wait, you forgot this.
Excuse me, I'm late for my flight. Whew, I made it. Hey, how's it going? Rick
Good.
Johnson.
Oh, good.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, just barely made it on the flight here.
Oh, I'm glad you did it.
Sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather, I guess.
Oh,
I haven't slept
bummer.
much lately.
That's
Um,
not good.
Yeah, hoping to catch up on this flight a little bit.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for our departure, I ask that you please store all carry-ons in either the upper head bins or the seat below you. As long as put all laptop computers in your stowaways and place all electronic devices on airplane mode. Thank you and enjoy your flight.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Rick Johnson. I'm an epidemiologist here at Marquette University, and I'm here to talk to some of you today about a newly emerging infectious disease that I've been doing some recent field work on in Southeast Asia. So this mystery disease we've kind of been calling loosely factory fever because it's been associated and was first noticed in the factories of major electronics and clothing companies that produce a lot of the low-cost appliances and clothing that we wear over here in the United States. So the symptoms we've seen associated with this. So Dr. X, you have a pretty unique perspective on this disease since you've been covering it in this area for quite some time. Could you give me a little bit more of your background in it and what makes it unique?
Yeah, so this is really my first time seeing this disease in this city, but I've only worked in this city before, and my colleagues that have worked more in rural areas have told me that it's been really endemic in those areas for the past couple of decades. But the numbers are just really shooting up to epidemic levels in the rural and the urban areas.
Interesting. So what has kind of been facilitating that increase in prevalence and incidence?
So We think that it's due to like a really complex relationship of climate change and urbanization. As the city grows, people keep coming to the city, and there's more just like dense population, and it's also getting into the more natural areas that were once just like preserved for nature, and now people are moving into those areas. And also, we're going through a really big drought right now, caused by just the changing climate, and it's causing a lot of farmers to have to move to the city to find work in factories instead of on their farms.
Okay. And I think when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that there was a lack of infrastructure in these previous decades, so they weren't really allowed to, or even able to, travel between cities and rural areas so well.
Yes.
But yes, I found this very interesting, and I thank you for your unique perspective in this matter.
Yes, thank you.
Alrighty. So in order to introduce this disease properly, I want to really hammer home first a couple major transmission topics and disease topics that are covered in epidemiology. The first one has to do with the origin of this disease. Now Dr. X, whom I talked with, hypothesized that this is a mutated strain of the disease that was formerly endemic to isolated and rural areas of Southeast Asia. So endemic means that the disease is constantly acknowledged and there is a real presence of this disease in a certain geographic area. So this takes us to the last level of disease, and that would be the pandemic. The pandemic is what we most are hoping to avoid with this factory fever, honestly. It would be very devastating if this was to spread to another country or another continent. And that's basically what a pandemic is. It's a large-scale exposure and infection of people on different countries and possibly different continents. As you can see here, the slide I have an example of is from the 2009 H1N1 swine flu epidemic. And you can see how it affected the majority, if not all, of North America and South America, spreading to major population density areas such as in Australia and Central Europe as well. Now I want to address the topic of climate change in regards to our factory fever. So lately in the area there's been a drought for about the past couple of years that's affected Southeast Asia, and it's really devastated the farming communities in the rural and isolated areas, so much so that they've caused an economic crisis and vast food shortages. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I've had a cough the past couple of days. So what's really driving this issue is that the villagers, we believe, are transmitting this endemic, more virulent strain of disease into the factories. This is what we're hypothesizing at the point, and they basically have to work in the factories. They're unskilled jobs that are really open to anybody, and these laborers do not have much skill or education. So climate change is also affecting not only their food shortages and economic outcomes, but it may also be affecting the reservoirs of the disease. We have not fully elucidated whether there is an animal reservoir, but we believe it may be a possibility. So decrease in foliage with drought may result in animals moving into more well-resourced areas, I would say, such as in the city where there is that availability of water, there is that availability of food constantly. So while the city is expanding and encroaching on the natural surroundings, the animals are also doing the same in regards to climate change. And like I said, many of these workers have changed their lifestyles completely and taken on a whole new role of farmers to factory workers. And this may be an emotionally stressful time for them, a very uncertain time, and we all know how stress affects the immune system, so these people may actually be more susceptible to disease infection and spread as well. Excuse me. So as I kind of mentioned earlier as well, there has been a profound impact of urbanization on this disease's spread. So as cities in Southeast Asia have been booming with economic industry, they've been expanding at a very high rate and encroaching upon these highly dense natural wildlife areas that surround them, and affecting a lot of the wildlife and plant life in the area, and with really unknown outcomes to this point. A lot of the people from these rural areas have also been coming into the urban centers, so they may be bringing with them different customs, traditions, and maybe even diseases into these cities that may not be fully identified for years to come. But there's been a total decrease and kind of even moving away from farm production and towards more of a first world industrial production type economy. So we don't exactly know how that's going to affect disease spread in the urban center, but we do know that it is probably not good for the surrounding wildlife. And so to go off of that, we also want to introduce the topic of travel in regards to disease spread. So in this area especially, they previously lacked an infrastructure prior to this economic boom. So these people in isolated rural areas that may have been encountering this endemic factory fever may not have even really had the opportunity to bring it into urban centers because there was no even roads or adequate transportation to take them the 15 miles through dense jungle to the city. But as there's been more job demand and even supply, more resources in the urban centers have led to increased travel between the areas. And with increased travel, you have increase in potential for disease spread. And in these large urban areas, we do have large airports, metro stations, markets, areas of high population density beyond what would even be expected in a normal city, let alone having most of these people living with their extended family in close quarters. So that segues into the topic of globalization in regards to disease spread. And like I said before, what we were really hoping to avoid before we really fully understand this factory fever is a globalization or a pandemic of this disease. And while humans have become truly a global species, we do not want our diseases to become global because that transports them all around the world to areas where they may be able to increase in virulence or transmissibility before we have a chance to fully understand and control them. And so this ease of world travel has made it very difficult for us to kind of contain these new diseases and really understand them before they have a chance to get really bad. So with that, I want to introduce some of the modes of transmission of disease. And these modes of transmission are usually direct or indirect, vehicle-borne or vector-borne. And I will cover all those topics coming up. So with direct transmission, we have usually skin-on-skin, mucous membrane on mucous membrane, as is seen in like sexually transmitted diseases or infections. We also have transplacental transmission, which counts as direct transmission because you have it from the mother to the child across the placenta. You may also have direct transmission through breast milk, such as the antibody IgA, and there are other different types of diseases that may be spread by this manner. We believe that factory fever has a large amount of its spread due to direct contact. So if you are interacting with anyone who appears to have the symptoms, I would suggest staying away from them. Let's hope we don't have to deal with that for a while though, because it is still in Southeast Asia. So for indirect transmission, what we've seen a lot for factory fever is people spreading it by coughing and through droplet nuclei, or respiratory droplets, I take that back. These are close range transmission. So if someone were to sneeze or cough on you, the pathogens would be able to stay alive and possibly infect you from that point. They may also reside on fomites, which are inanimate objects that may harbor pathogens, such as cell phones, maybe doorknobs, stuff like that, items that are constantly touched by the affected or by even susceptible people. So another mode of transmission that I mentioned was through vehicles. We have foodborne and waterborne, in which the pathogen simply resides within its respective substance and may either produce a toxin or just have something innate to the bacteria or virus itself that causes disease. Airborne is one of the main concerns for us because we don't exactly know if this disease can or produces droplet nuclei. which are more long range than the respiratory droplets that I talked about before. So they can be projected over many feet or even many dozens of feet before they would lose their ability to cause disease. I also want to talk about aerosols, which are particles of particularly pathogens or pathogenic substances that are suspended in a gas or air matter that we really want to be careful for. And that's why we try and keep infection control measures in our mind at all times. And that with that, we want to make our way to vector-borne diseases, in which we may have insects or something like that causing the spread of disease while they harbor the bacteria, promote its growth within their body, allowing its cycle to persist and keep producing larger number of the pathogen. So, like I said, we have not fully elucidated whether or not factory fever has a reservoir or a vector or anything like that, which would help facilitate disease spread, but we are definitely looking into it and is a chief concern of ours for sure. So with the topic of disease transmission, we want to segue then into the topic of reproductive number, basic reproductive number, I should say. And that's the number of people that a person infects from a single primary infection. So when that number is greater than 1, you have continued spread of the disease. So basically you would say one person is causing more than one person to be sick. If the number goes to less than 1, you have the disease dying out, as in less people are becoming infected. And this basic reproduction number, also known as R0, is a measure of transmissibility of the disease. So how effectively is it going to transmit to other people? Basic reproduction number, however, does not take into account immunity within the population, such as susceptible people or previously immunized, or treatment factors such as quarantine, cures, or isolation. So the last topic I want to cover in regards to factory fever is of the utmost importance, because we do not fully understand, like I said, how this disease is spread, and we really want to just take all precautions we can. So number 1 would be hand washing. That is always the number 1 precaution that we have, because it eliminates microbes from your hands to a certain degree, and you use your hands to touch everything. So let's be real, hand washing is the number 1. Another infection control measure which we began implementing in the factories in China was self-isolation as symptoms began appearing to really limit the spread of disease. We also encourage the use of surgical masks for employees and for their family members so they do not get the respiratory droplets or droplet nuclei potentially that we discussed earlier. We also talked to managers and foremen and had them sanitize work surfaces after each shift. This is kind of difficult to do because this factory runs 24/7, but we're doing the best to implement these measures. I'd also encourage trying to cough without using your hands, such as that, and then we worked with local doctors on having them report all symptoms to local health authorities, because this is such an emerging disease that we don't really know anything about. And then for the family members of those affected, we talked about prohibiting sharing utensils, cups, handheld items, anything, and really trying to stay in a different room from them if possible, although their quarters are generally very, very cramped. So this is what we know so far about factory fever. I'll be doing a couple of questions and answers after my presentation outside if anybody is looking to talk to me or has some interest in this. We can also discuss epidemiology at Marquette University and the various roads that could take you down. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Rick Johnson, that was a great presentation.
Oh, I'm glad you really
appreciate
enjoyed
that.
it.
That's awesome.
Thank you. We got a lot of work to do yet,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see where this goes down the road.
Totally
Very, very interesting.
unbelievable. All right, well, I'm going to see you. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
What?
thank you for coming. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming. All right. Good presentation.
Hi,
Hey,
Ryan.
how's it going?
Johnson.
Rick Johnson. Nice to meet you
meet
guys.
you.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great, your presentation was amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad somebody enjoyed it. It
I
was
think everybody did.
good. I put in a lot of hard work, so hopefully we can nip this thing in the bud, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But Yeah, what did you guys like best about it?
Yeah, the modes of transmission were really interesting. Hopefully we can get that under control.
Yeah, you're telling me. Hopefully they'll kind of figure that out in the factories over there. We put in some good infection control measures, but can only rely on them.
So
Yes, very
we'll see.
true. It is hard to control people. Well, I have another meeting to get to, unfortunately,
Okay.
but thank you guys for
Perfect.
coming.
Thank
it
you
was
so
nice to meet
much.
you.
It was nice to meet
Alrighty,
you.
definitely. Have a good one.